All right, so Antonia, this latest escalation, this idea that Harvard's not going to be able to host international students, trying to revoke the visa process that Harvard used to host them on its campus, what would it mean for the university if this is ultimately successful?
Well, a few things. First, it would be a direct hit to the fabric of campus life. International students just here at Harvard, it's almost 7,000 people, about 27% of the student body here. Everyone who spends time on this campus, I mean, even if you're just standing on the street here, you hear people speaking multiple languages every single day. So it would fundamentally change what going to school here is actually like, who you're able to learn from, the kinds of debates you're able to have in the lunchroom, all of that. But then there is the financial question. And of course, sometimes, people have trouble pulling out their little violin to feel bad for Harvard. Of course, they have a $50+ billion endowment. But endowments are not checking accounts. They are wrapped up in all kinds of legal agreements and agreements with donors who have specifically earmarked things for specific purposes. So you don't get to just take that money out and spend it anytime you have a problem that's coming up very suddenly from this administration. So the money they make off of international students who very often are paying full dollar to attend Harvard, that is often subsidizing the financial aid program here. So it is making it possible for Americans of all kinds of backgrounds from all 50 states to be able to afford to come to Harvard. At times here, 60% of the undergraduate body is depending on financial aid. So that gives you a picture of just the number of people that could impact and how drastically it would reshape campus life and potentially limit who has the opportunity to come to Harvard. And the people that are punished in that scenario are not really the people who are involved in whether you're talking about campus protests, whether you're talking about criticisms of international students and the views that they bring to a community like Harvard, if that's your concern in this administration. Those aren't really the people who would be harmed by these actions. So that's why you're seeing Harvard take this very aggressive legal action now. Every source that I've spoken to here says that this is an existential problem, not just for the university itself, but for all of higher education, because Secretary Noem just said earlier that this is about more than Harvard, and other schools could see something like this coming soon.
Yeah, she said it should be a warning to every other university. I wonder, does Harvard feel like, I mean, obviously this is just one of many fights that Harvard is in currently with the administration. Antonia, does Harvard feel like they're ultimately going to be able to continue fighting if the Trump administration continues to try to find ways to attack it, to hurt it? I mean, by the way, in the GOP budget bill, one of the line items is a significant tax hike on elite schools' endowments from 1.4% to, I think it's 24% or 20%. It's a giant hike. Do they feel like they're able to stand up to that?
Well, as of right now, they do. Certainly, that's why they're spending the kind of resources and strategizing in the way that we've seen them act in these last several weeks. It's because they are beginning to realize they have to be in this for the long haul, that every single one of these fights could wind through the courts for years to come. They could end up in front of the Supreme Court. In fact, many of the attorneys that they brought on to work with them are conservative attorneys, and they've done that very purposely because they're trying to get inside the head of the Trump administration and, kind of play 4D chess here, have a sense of what may come. If you take this action, what 10 other things could follow after that? They're being very strategic, very careful in all of this. And they're also having both intimate and kind of public conversations with their faculty and their alums about what this is going to mean. So the alums are already hearing from President Garber about, the need to really push up fundraising right now, the amount of support that they're going to need from the broader community to survive these next several years. That's all going to be part of the strategy. But again, they feel that they have a real duty, not just to themselves and what Harvard represents and the need to protect all of that, of course, because it is their job, but also to the fact that there are a lot of universities that simply cannot do this fight. And so they feel like they're kind of the potential canary in the coal mine kind of thing here.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, no one else will. Certainly, we've seen what Columbia has done, taken a very different strategy, and they have felt very intentional about not going that path at this point, Katie.
So the tax is 1.4% to as high as 21%. It's a tax on the investment returns of their endowments. It's a lot of money. Barbara, the university president, the current one, says that this is the culmination of the administration's unprecedented and retaliatory attacks on academic freedom. He's calling Trump's actions arbitrary, capricious, unlawful, and unconstitutional. I also want to play for you what the former president of Harvard and also a former Secretary of the Treasury, Larry Summers, said about these moves.
This is extortion. It's a vendetta using all powers of the government because of a political argument with Harvard. It is violating the First Amendment. This is about a vicious attack to pursue a personal agenda.
So is it extortion, Barb?
Well, it depends on your definition, I suppose. Under the law, I don't know that it qualifies as extortion, but it does have some of the same characteristics. What we're seeing here are, as Mr. Summers just said, what appear to be violations of the First Amendment. Academic freedom. Institutions are free to choose what they teach, who they hire, who they admit, so long as they do it in compliance with the law. And one of the things we're seeing here, in my opinion, is an effort by the Trump administration to get Harvard to come to its knees, to say enough, we give up, and to capitulate to these demands in this very us versus them world that Donald Trump seems to inhabit. The reason I think we are hearing the president of the university use words like arbitrary and capricious is that those are the words in the statute of the Administrative Procedure Act, which says the government may not act in an arbitrary or capricious fashion when it's making decisions that relate to any of the programs that receive benefits under the administrative law. So, for example, snatching away approval from students or simply pulling away billions of dollars in grant monies is allegedly arbitrary and capricious. There's supposed to be a process, an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity of fair notice, and none of those things has been provided, which is why I think we're seeing these TROs across the board. Now, whether they'll prevail in the long term is a different question. It seems to me likely that they will. But in the meantime, if you can apply enough pain to a university like Harvard or others that don't have the same sizable endowment, you may see them succumb just so that they can continue operations.
You know, this may be a weedy question, but one that I've been asking myself. I know that there are the endowments earmarked. They come with strings attached. I wonder in a moment of crisis like this, whether Harvard has any legal recourse to try to cut those strings on their endowment and use it to keep the university afloat, or use it where they feel like they need to keep the university functioning at the high level it currently is.
I don't think so. You know, most often what happens is people give gifts on a condition. And so, for example, say I want to provide scholarships to people interested in studying the law in pursuit of a career in prosecution. Those dollars must be used for that purpose. They can't be used just as a rainy day fund. That would be a violation of my state of the donor's wishes. So that's the reason that it's so difficult. You can say they've got all of this money, but they can't just spend it all to reduce tuition or pay for student support, student loans, and other kinds of things, because all of those dollars have to go where the donor earmarked them for.
I wonder if they're making calls to those donors right now and saying, can we change the rules in this endowment? Can we use this money where necessary? I imagine they'd actually get quite a good hearing out from certain donors about that. Michael Bender, do you have any reporting on that? I saw your face.
They absolutely are. Harvard,
Yeah.
Penn, Berkeley, Columbia. They're looking for any loopholes in their endowments. Any donors who they can keep on speed dial in case these other schools are targeted in the same way that Harvard has been. And I mean, one important thing to keep in mind here is that the administration is inflicting pain on Harvard, and Harvard is unique in academia. And they have, by far, the largest endowment in the country. And whether these assaults from the administration are right or wrong, I mean, even if Harvard wins both of these lawsuits and additional ones that are almost certain to come in the coming weeks and months, this will drain their resources, and that could leave, it could leave. This is why Harvard officials have been telling us privately that they are in an untenable crisis, whether they're right or wrong. And even if you believe Trump is wrong on every single one of these probes and inquiries and funding cuts, it is really doing a significant amount of damage to Harvard. And it's hard to argue right now why Trump would be in the right on this, because the administration has sort of refused to identify any specific problems beyond anti-Semitism. We know about the campus protests and damage and violence that was done, has been done over the last couple of years. But these new probes don't identify specific incidents or specific students. They ask for broad reams of data. And in this latest lawsuit, when Harvard doesn't comply with every single one, the administration's using that to justify cutting billions of dollars from the school or to remove them from a very important student exchange program for not just Harvard but for students across the world. And what has been really one of the sources of great strength academically, politically, economically for America for a century.